because what fast fashion allows us to do is engage in celeb-like activities when you combine it with social media. There are moments in life where, one must draggeth thyself, and this is one of those for me as I confront my relationship with fast fashion. In this video though, I want to talk about why it can be so hard to put away from fast fashion and into more sustainable practices, and how the sustainable fashion movement puts up barriers to letting certain people in and engaging with it. Now, I went back and forth about making this video because anyone who knows me knows I'm a fashion over babe. Like, I thought one day I was going to have my own discount code. It was going to be these nuts. Everything was going to be sweet. But if you're in a privileged place, i.e. you have access to information, you have the time and the resources to make changes to your lifestyle, then I think you should do so. So I was in part inspired to do this video after watching Out Teanna Empowers video on sustainability and elitism, and she talks about a lot of things that I think are missing from the wider narrative around sustainability and also sustainable fashion. So left that in the description bar. Let's get into it. So the thing is, so many of us know the consequences of fast fashion, right? Getting those items cheaply and quickly means environmental impacts like water usage, CO2 emissions, chemicals and dye pollution, but also labor issues like somewhere in the supply chain, someone isn't being paid fairly or their conditions are less than adequate. And yet so many of us still engage with it. And so why is that? And I think one of the reasons is because what fast fashion allows us to do is engage in celeb-like activities when you combine it with social media. And what I mean by that is, think about once upon a time, it was only a celeb who'd be caught in a different item or different outfit all the time being posted in magazines or on TV. But we're kind of replicating that on social media with our fast fashion and in our posting. What that means is then that the whole process of purchasing and consuming is laced heavily with emotions, because that fashion item or that fashion purchase now means something to you when you get likes and people respond to you in a certain way. People are commenting underneath trying to be like you, and it feels good. And that feel good factor then plays a very big part in how you decide to spend or your purchasing decisions. Because we know that as human beings, we often make decisions based on emotions and not logic. So you know that fast fashion is not good for the environment and it's not good for a lot of people down the supply chain, but it makes you feel good when you do certain things attached to that. And I think if you don't tackle that and tackle how consumption makes people feel and how we have placed success and purchasing power in the same kind of bracket, then you're never going to get enough people moving away from fast fashion into more sustainable practices, enough people to make a real difference. And so that has to be spoken about more and pushed more if we're really going to move anywhere. A second issue is the combination of size, style and affordability and the crossover between that. And what I mean by that is, often you have to trade one out to make a sustainable purchase. So for example, if you're shaped differently to what the standard models used in fashion, then it can be very hard to find items of clothing that fit you the way you want when it comes to sustainable purchases, right? Like even finding a pair of jeans is hard enough for some people with the whole fast fashion available to them. You narrow it down to only sustainable brands and thrifting, and it can be a very, very hard thing to get done. So then maybe you have to compromise the style. Maybe you can't get skinny jeans, but you have to get baggy jeans. And I think that has pushed a lot of people away from it. Like for example, when I was younger, I went thrifting a couple of times and it was just ridiculous trying to find a pair of jeans that fit me. So the idea was then I had to buy a pair of jeans that didn't fit and get them tailored, or just buy something completely different to what I wanted. And for a lot of people, they're not willing to make that trade-off. And I think this gap in the market though is being filled. Young influencers and young entrepreneurs are seeing that gap and trying to fill it. And Grace Beverly and her Wear Tala brand is one of those. So they offer sports luxe items that are sustainably produced at an affordable price. Because the thing is, we don't want items to be cheap. That's not the point. But if they are so expensive that people have to save up for months, the average person has to save up for months and months to buy them, then it can cut a lot of people out of the sustainable market. And that's not what you want to do. You want to find the balance between not too cheap but not too expensive, I think, in my opinion. There are also other options, of course, like I said, buying items and tailoring and getting a tailor to take it in at the waist or take it in here. But for everyone, that isn't an option, to buy the item, spend the money on the item, and spend the money and the time trying to get it tailored. And we have to be realistic about which people that is an option for and which people that isn't an option for. Like, I do also think that you don't have to cancel everyone. Like, not all fast fashion brands are created equally as bad or equally as good, however you want to phrase it. And I've recently found this app called Good On You, where they research the brand in terms of their environmental stance, their labor stance, and another indicator that I've forgotten at the moment. And then you can use that in part to make decisions about where you want to purchase. So maybe you still, you know, get the odd few item from fast fashion, and I think that's okay. Like, it's a process, and it's not like you watch a documentary or read an article and boom, like, okay, that's it. As of tomorrow, throwing out all my Fashion Nova items. I'm only gonna buy from the top sustainability brands or thrift. Like, it's a process, and so allow yourself to understand the best way you can adopt practices. Another issue is the way that the sustainable fashion movement has been constructed and presented, especially in Western societies, has left a lot of people out. Right, think about who is the face of sustainability and whose practices get spoken about and whose practices get deemed acceptable. And often it's not people who look like me, it's not people from working class. And so that then stops a lot of people from engaging in the movement, which is counterproductive, because if you really want to achieve sustainability, you can't rely on just having 1/16 of the world's population engaged. Like, it has to be spreadable, it has to be expandable. And if it can't achieve that, then you're not going to have a movement that's really going to achieve the goals that you want to set. And what this is the result of is the way that the sustainability movement as a whole has sometimes ignored the way that social and economic factors will overlap with environmental and, you know, the agendas of the movement in a whole. For example, it's like black activists being cropped out of pictures. It's about who we decide to be the voice of our youth movements, despite the fact that people have been working behind the scenes for years on this. And just on a larger scale, how your social and economic background is going to affect the way that you practice sustainability, okay? Like, okay, what happens if I'm from a low-income family, and so the way I do it might not be as glamorous as some of these YouTube videos or some of these articles and magazines where people are swapping out this and purchasing that and going to this high-end store. And so if you don't engage with that and how you can then include those people into the narrative as a whole, then you are going to have an incomplete picture. And it goes even deeper than that, because the practices that we push, sometimes we forget that for some people, those aren't positive experiences. For example, thrifting, right? Like, where I'm from, when once upon a time, thrifting wasn't cool, bro. Like, if you said you got that from a charity shop, they're looking at you like, well, why do you do that? Like, can't you afford certain things? And for some people, those experiences are laced with negative emotions of, like, not having enough. And so then how do we bring those people into the conversation and get their aspect and their opinion on our practices, or how we can open it up to more people? I think it's very complex, and to oversimplify it is what happens a lot of the time, but at the detriment of the movement as a whole. And like I alluded to, it's not that certain groups don't practice sustainability, it's just that it doesn't look the way that a lot of us want to consume it. So it's not pretty, and it's not with all like plants everywhere and the irony, and and so are you willing to have those faces in the conversation too? I think another thing that comes into this is that sustainability is a 3-tier or 3-pillar thing when you actually take it back to its original meaning: social, economic, and environmental, right? And for me, something that I don't hear spoken about enough is where you buy from, as in who do you buy from? And so do you buy from black-owned businesses or businesses owned by indigenous people? And why not? Why so? Because the thing is the access to the economic market and being a part of economic commerce is something that not everyone has equal access to, right? We know this. And so is part of your sustainable practices purchasing from those people? Because if it's not, and it's not part of your conversation, then you are, again, having an incomplete conversation about sustainability. So I think a final thing then is accepting that sustainability can look very different, and sustainable practices. And you might do things like practicing minimalism, which is something that I was doing, and I felt at the time that was enough. You know, reducing my purchases just all the way down, not every month, maybe a couple times a year. But when I did purchase, I was still purchasing from them less than sustainable brands. And so it was like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And so now I'm in a place where, okay, when you do purchase, how about we purchase from places that, you know, are more sustainable, or we thrift, or we try new things. And obviously with the advent of Depop and online thrifting, some of those issues that were once there, like not being able to find your size and style, have been kind of diminished, because now you have access in the same way you would online with a fast fashion store. You have online to these thrifting stores, or these these items, and so that's great. So I think overall there is a lot of work to be done in terms of making the sustainable fashion movement more inclusive and more representative. But there are things that a lot of us who are privileged enough to do can think about, especially when it comes to deconstructing our relationship with consumerism and the emotions that we tie to that. That is going to be a big part of us moving forward, I think. And so that's kind of what I wanted to say today. Like the video if you enjoy it, comment, subscribe. See y'all later.